the Assumption Parish sinkhole, and 20,000 abandoned waste pits. The most visible evidence of the intentional neglect and wanton pollution of Louisiana's land and water. Yet there is a great deal more. Secret internal memos of big oil companies have been discovered and judicially allowed to be entered into evidence in courts throughout Louisiana. These internal memos tell a horrific story of what the big oil and gas companies knew about the impact of their practices on Louisiana land and water. These facts are surprising and often disgusting. As far back as 1917, 1924, and 1929, scientific studies warned of the horrendous impact of oil field brines and paraffin on vegetation, surface water, fish, livestock, drinking water, and other parts of Louisiana's environment. These reports concluded that evaporation ponds, the common method of storing oil field wastes, was an extreme environmental danger. We are only kidding ourselves when we think we can dispose of salt water by earthen ponds, a 1932 report stated. In 1994, 70 years later, a Texaco internal memo referenced this 1932 report and eerily stated, "It is interesting to note how little has changed." Yes, little has changed. A 1979 Shell Oil internal memo warned Big Oil that waste handling had become careless. It even went further, warning a diligent state representative could cite us for improper pit usage at several sites. Why? The secret memo gave the reason. Field operations indicate that environmental damage has occurred at several pits. The Shell Oil memo even went further, noting that many of the pits in the Coastal Division indicate a lack of concern for environmental protection. 1 year later, in 1980, Shell Oil was made even more aware of the impact of their neglect. The 1980 Shell Oil secret memo warns numerous environmental regulations are being violated, with the consequence that a citation could be issued any time, resulting in possible facility shutdowns and stiff fines. Why? Fluids were flowing into navigable waters, vegetation kill was evident, oil had penetrated wetlands without being cleaned up, and illegal discharges of salt water and waste oils were being made into rivers and streams. 33 years ago, this report concluded that all of these practices are flagrant violations of the law. 4 years later, in 1984, a Shell Oil operations manager charged his company with a mood of operational indifference regarding these illegal practices. Because this was the common state of the oil and gas industry, Shell Oil Company was not the only one who was quite aware of its negligence. For example, in 1982, a secret Texaco internal memo described an ever-increasing number of complaints from landowners concerning poor maintenance of the surface of their property. About 1986, activities in a large Louisiana oil production field, a subsequent Texaco secret memo cites groundwater contamination and admits that we are looking at over 125 years cleanup time. This is just a sample of hundreds of thousands of secret memos that big oil and gas companies have been forced to release by Louisiana courts. They clearly show how big oil and gas companies have known for almost a century what the environmental impact of their activities have been on Louisiana land and drinking water. However, the question remains, why hasn't the big oil and gas companies made the effort to clean up the environmental mess they continue to make? Again, let's turn to the secret internal memos of these giant corporations. A 1979 Shell Oil memo. There is no economic incentive to maintain the pits. A Texaco memo. We are using the cheapest method of remediation. A Shell Oil memo. Through the years, we have enjoyed these cost savings for failing to clean up. As these secret memos continually show, there was one primary motive for big oil and gas's failure to clean up the hazardous mess they had created: profits.